So now it comes to actually managing your project inside the finance system. So a number of elements to this. Typically we're going to start by looking at project budgeting. So our software can capture both cost budgets and revenue or sales budgets. So if it's a piece of client chargeable work, you can put together an estimate of how much that's going to cost to do the work, as well as what you're expecting to charge a customer, and therefore your expected profitability. The budgeting process could be done at a summary level, so it could be the overall cost and therefore an expected revenue for the project, or it could be at a more detailed level. It might be costs and revenue per period, or it might be costs and revenue at the level of the work breakdown structure, or what's sometimes called the activity structure that sits below the project. We also offer the capability of doing budgeting at the level of resources, so the people that are going to be involved in working on a project, as well as itemised budgets, so the various things that you're going to buy or the components of a budget of a project that you're going to deliver. And finally, we also offer the capability to upload budget information from Microsoft Excel, where Excel is being used to put together a sophisticated pricing for a more complicated project. Next, we quite often consider the idea of allocating resources to a project. So unless a resource is allocated to a project, they normally can't see that project in their list of options to select from whenever they're entering a transaction. So whenever they're entering a timesheet or whenever they're entering an expense, if they've not been allocated to the project or even allocated to the activity or the item in the work breakdown structure, then they won't actually be able to post to that project. So project allocations are quite a good way of making sure people don't accidentally put time against the wrong project or put expenses against projects that they shouldn't be posting expenses to. Then the project management capability in our software allows people to make purchases against projects. So we have a purchase requisition form which can be filled in that lives with the project. Every purchase made through that form will be part of that project, become the committed costs for that project. And because it's a project purchase, we understand that it might have a different workflow or different nominal coding logic to an overhead purchase. So a project purchase might be routed to the project manager as opposed to the department head, and it might be coded up to direct costs rather than overheads in the nominal ledger. We can also create sales requests. So I talked about purchase requests, a request to buy something. We can also have a sales request, which is a form which, when filled in and approved, becomes an invoice. So an invoice request is the best way to think about it. Just like those purchase requests, that invoice request can follow different logic because it's linked to a project rather than one that's not linked to a project. So an invoice request might go to the project manager for sign-off, and the invoice request that's linked to a project might follow revenue recognition rules and nominal posting rules because of the fact that it's linked to a project rather than one that's outside of a project. And finally, we can also post timesheets and expenses to our projects. And as I said earlier, the ability to allocate resources is a great way of restricting who can post time and expenses to your projects to make sure that what you've got inside a project are the correct costs of everyone that's meant to be working on that job.